Thank you, Director. Like Director A has discussed, we've been hard at work working to find efficiencies, make ourselves lean, and get the best return on investment for every dollar that we spend. We've closely examined every aspect of the department, and we've found numerous areas of improvement, and I'm going to go over those here today. There were old policies and practices that were followed just because that's the way we did things. But the business as usual mentality can't continue if we want to continue to create jobs and maintain our infrastructure at a high level. One such practice is zero-based budgeting. This year we've moved to zero-based budgeting. It's been a long-time practice of the Department of Transportation to carry forward lots of money for cushions for the future years. But those days have come to an end. We can't let this money sit on the books as the projects are needed and infrastructure is needed around the state and jobs can be created. This year alone, we will free up close to $60 million in carry forward dollars to put into the program and into construction. We've also rebudgeted nearly $150 million off of our previously planned biennium budget for operating. Some of the areas that we drilled into and found efficiencies are equipment usage. Some of you may have seen the auditor's report, but we're at the same time we're looking at how often we use our equipment. And that means tractors, backhoes, and grade-alls, and such, and so forth and so on. Rather than purchasing new equipment because they're 15 or 20 years old, do we actually need that equipment? How often do we use the equipment? And rebudgeting that money. Overtime control. Now, Mother Nature dealt us a very nice hand this year with our snow and ice control. Next year might be different. We're always going to plow the roads, salt the roads, and keep it safe for the motoring public. So we will do what it takes to clear those roads. However, in the construction program, our construction division at the direction of Jim Barna, we've looked at the overtime budget for construction. It's not just a 5-year average for construction. Each district has a program every year. Sometimes they're large and sometimes they're small. Jim personally looked at the programs and looked at the overtime budgets based on how big the program or how small the program was. Vehicle usage and purchasing. Similarly with the equipment, there are vehicles that we don't use enough. So rather than retiring them and purchasing new vehicles, we simply are going to retire the underutilized vehicles. And we believe that we can reduce our vehicle fleet by up to 40%. That's a lot of money freed up to go into the program. And as the director mentioned, personnel. We've reduced by over 400 people. We're not stopping there. We're going to continue to reduce our staff where appropriate by attrition, and we believe we can get even further in the future. This is our first year for zero-based budgeting. The district and division deputy directors and their staffs worked very hard at this with the 4 assistant directors in the director's direction. And I'm here to tell you it was not easy. There were a lot of discussion. Sometimes there was a lot of emotion involved, but we got there. And I want to personally thank the DDDs, the division and district deputy directors for all their work and their staff. We're going to continue to do that year in and year out. Other areas, project scopes. There have also been adjustments in the scopes of the major projects around the state. One of the biggest adjustments is the Dayton job, I-75. The final plans came in, and the final estimates were produced, and the cost estimate was reduced by $75 million due to scope changes and redesigns. We will continue to find project efficiencies on all of our designs around the state with our engineering division. Federal adjustments and the freeze of earmarks. The director mentioned the highway bill and the extensions that we've seen over the last almost 3 years. The federal program has locked us down to some extent with not passing a new highway bill. However, there are a couple positive notes with what has happened. One of those, and many of the 9 extensions, including the most recent continuing resolution, they had no earmarks in the federal bill, which helps tremendously for us. leaving states like Ohio with the discretion of how best to use their money rather than putting it into law. Gas tax revenues. There was a chart up earlier, and the director mentioned it. As gas prices drop, people drive more. We see more revenue. The projections that we had in fiscal year 11 and somewhat in 12 were under budgeted or under projected. We saw some additional revenues come in due to the fact that gas prices were down in the $2.50 range. Now we're seeing gas prices up in the $3.50 to $4. That might change, but we did see some additional revenues come in from the projections. There are still uncertainties, however. It appears that we have the same level of funding through fiscal year 13. Director Ray mentioned that there is a current highway bill that the Congress is in conference committee, and they are debating it today and this summer. We're hopeful that it will move into law or move out of conference committee this summer. And that currently will keep us at the same funding levels. Also, we see great value in engaging the private sector. We were the 30th state at the biennium budget last February and March to have the ability to engage in public-private partnerships. One such endeavor is looking to develop a service plaza program from our existing rest areas. We've talked around the state about this program many times. We currently have 104 rest areas. 45 of those are on the interstate. Federal law prohibits us from doing any commercialization of rest areas on the interstate, but we have other ideas for that, and I'll get into that in a second. Of the residual of that, 59 non-interstate rest areas are along the U.S. and state routes in Ohio. We are exploring the option of converting these rest areas into service plazas. We believe this will serve the public much better. It will turn a cost into a revenue and generate additional money for projects around the state. We look to release our first RFP on 5 rest areas south of Columbus on US 23 sometime in June. And then after that program, we'll see how well it went and move forward with others. Sponsorships and naming rights. We also consider the possibility of seeking sponsorships and name rights for certain infrastructure projects like bridges, interchanges, and interstate rest areas. Interstate rest areas could be sponsored by Pepsi or Coca-Cola or whatnot, and could receive not only the revenue, but not only we could receive the money to offset the cleaning and the maintenance of those programs. We expect to generate millions of dollars in this area. We've partnered with the Nevada DOT on this particular issue. I tell a story a couple times, the director has mentioned a few times. They had an unsolicited proposal to turn over the maintenance and operation of an interchange on I-15 near Las Vegas. I-15 runs right along the Las Vegas corridor, Las Vegas Strip. Caesar's Palace wanted to take it over and put Caesar's Palace in some bushes on the infield and wrap the piers and make them look like pillars and make it look very Caesar-like. And they were going to pay the state of Nevada close to $1 million a year for this. The Federal Highway Administration said that it was distracting. I don't know if many of you have been to Las Vegas, but if you're driving up and down Interstate 15, there are 50-foot by 50-foot billboards with less than fully clothed people on them. I don't think an interchange wrapped with pillars would make it distracting. Innovative funding and public-private partnerships. We're researching the development of alternative delivering funding solutions for financing the construction of several different projects. And these options include, and aren't limited to, design build finance, operate, maintain. Those could be paid back through availability payments, which we're looking into, and also adding tolls to new capacity on the interstates and off the interstates. Some of these projects include the Brent Spence Bridge project in Cincinnati. It's a $2.5 billion project we're partnering with Kentucky on. If we would wait for this project to be traditionally funded, it would be probably 30 years from now. We're looking at tolling that bridge, hopefully, to get it under construction in 2014. The Portsmouth Bypass, we recently hired a consultant to help us look at the best way to structure this public-private partnership, and that would be an availability payment. we receive approximately $22 million from Appalachian Regional Council, and we would use that money to pay the contractor or the concessionaire back over a period of time. Other projects include the I-71 3637 in Delaware County, and then also a build and finance proposal that we may or may not coming in on unsolicited for the second Interbelt Bridge in Cleveland. Finally, and we've talked a lot about it, is the Ohio Turnpike. We're working with KPMG to provide a third-party thorough analysis. We are confident that this in-depth analysis will provide us the information and recommendations we need to fully leverage the value of the state-owned asset. These options include do nothing with the Turnpike. Leave it as it is. It runs its own ship, and we go and they continue the way they are. We could roll the Turnpike's operation under ODOT, and we would leverage future toll revenues and bond against it and use that money in northern Ohio and across the state. We could go out and seek a concessionaire to lease the Turnpike for some period of time, somewhere in the 40-year range, and leverage the money for northern Ohio again and also for other programs in the rest of the state. And then obviously some combination there within from public-owned and privately operated. Certainly these opportunities exist that would maintain the Turnpike's role as an integral part of our excellent highway system, but could also provide additional dollars to improve the state's status as a national leader in logistics. When you add all of these up, we're starting to see real savings. But we know there's a lot of work to do, and under the leadership of Director Ray, we will continue to explore all of our options and work hard to close this funding gap. Thank you, and I'd like to turn it back over to Director Ray.